She was only a passenger in 13F until the F-22 pilots heard her call sign. The plane from Seattle to Washington, D.C., lifted off under a pale morning sky. The air was calm, passengers half asleep, and the engines hummed with that steady, comforting rhythm only seasoned travelers appreciated. In seat 13F sat a woman who seemed ordinary at first glance. Dark hair neatly tied back, a simple gray blazer, no jewelry except a thin silver ring on her right hand. Her boarding pass said Rachel Hayes, but that wasn't her full name. Not the one that mattered. She was trying hard to forget that name. It had been 4 years since she last used her call sign Falcon 6. Once she was one of the youngest combat pilots in the U.S. Air Force. But after the accident over the Baltic, she disappeared from the radar, officially retired, unofficially broken. She moved quietly between jobs, hiding behind business class tickets and conference calls. Nobody on that plane knew that the quiet woman in 13F had once flown missions that had never made the news. The cabin lights dimmed as the plane climbed past 0 feet. A child in 12 giggled at a cartoon. The man beside her, a nervous accountant, asked, "Are you traveling for work?" Rachel smiled faintly, something like that. He nodded, sensing her distance, and went back to his laptop. Rachel looked out the window at the endless white expanse below, and thought of clouds she used to fly above, not through. She still remembered the weight of the helmet, the cold grip of the stick, the vibration through her gloves when afterburners kicked in. Those memories came uninvited, like old ghosts refusing to rest. But this morning fate had something different written. At 36,000 feet, the plane shuddered slightly, nothing alarming, just turbulent. The captain's calm voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing some light turbulence, but it should pass shortly." Rachel barely noticed. She was scrolling through news headlines when something unusual flashed across her phone screen. Breaking. NORAD detects unidentified aircraft entering restricted airspace over Atlantic corridor. Her heart slowed. It was the same route they were on. She tapped the headline. Details were scarce. Possible drone incursion. Civilian airliners were routed. She looked around the cabin. Nobody seemed to notice yet. But Rachel knew the system. NORAD never leaked a story unless it was already serious. A minute later, the turbulence worsened. The overhead lights flickered. The captain's voice returned this time, not calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts immediately." Passengers obeyed, murmuring nervously. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Out the window, she saw something glint, a flash of silver against the sun. Too fast, too high. That was no civilian aircraft. 2 minutes later, the seatbelt light chimed again, and the cabin crew froze as the captain's voice broke through. Sharper, tense. "This is your captain speaking. We are in contact with air traffic control. Please remain calm and seated." Rachel leaned forward, trying to get a glimpse of the cockpit door. Her instinct screamed that something was wrong. Then, faintly through the air vents, she heard static. A faint, broken transmission. "Flight 729, unidentified bogey at 6 o'clock. Her breath caught. That wasn't supposed to be audible. The cockpit radio must have leaked through the cabin's comm system. She knew that tone, that clipped rhythm. That was a scramble call, and then she heard it, distant but unmistakable, the low thunder of jets. Rachel's heart pounded. She pressed her hand to her face. "No way." She whispered. The accountant beside her frowned. "Is everything all right?" But she wasn't listening. She was back in the cockpit, in another life. She knew the procedure. 2 F-22s would intercept, hail the aircraft, and if no response came, the unthinkable could happen. A few passengers noticed the jets outside, now sleek gray shapes cutting across the horizon. A collective murmur rose through the cabin. "Why are there fighter jets out there?" a woman gasped. The captain came over the speaker again, his voice trembling slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a precautionary escort. Please stay calm." Rachel closed her eyes. Precautionary escort, that phrase only existed for one reason. Command didn't trust the transponder signal. Either the plane's identification was scrambled, or someone had taken control. Then the calm static returned. Louder. "Control, this is Raptor 1. Visual contact with Delta Flight 729. No response from cockpit." Rachel froze. She knew that voice. It couldn't be. "Raptor 1, repeat. No response from cockpit. Orders." Then another voice, distorted, official, emotionless. "Raptor 1, maintain formation. Authorization pending." Authorization. Her pulse spiked. She knew what that meant. If the aircraft didn't respond in 2 more minutes, the fighters would prepare for the intercept protocol. "God," she whispered, "they're going to shoot us down." The cabin crew didn't know what to say. Some passengers were crying quietly. Rachel unbuckled her belt. "Ma'am, please stay seated." The flight attendant pleaded, "I need to speak to the captain." Rachel said calmly, eyes steady, "I can't let you." Rachel leaned in, lowered her voice. "Tell him Falcon 6 needs a radio." The attendant blinked. I don't understand. Just do it. Now." Something in Rachel's tone, the authority, the trained certainty, made the attendant move. She hurried to the cockpit, whispered something through the locked door. Moments later, the captain himself cracked it open slightly, looking pale. "Who are you?" he asked. Rachel held out her old Air Force ID, worn, faded, but real. "Major Rachel Hayes, call sign Falcon 6, former 102nd Fighter Wing. You're being targeted by your own side because your transponder's dead." The captain's face drained of color. "We lost comms 5 minutes ago. We've been trying to—" "I know," she said, stepping closer. "You're about to cross restricted airspace with no response. You've got maybe 90 seconds before they ask for authorization." He swallowed. "Authorization to fire," she said flatly. He stared at her. "What can we do?" "Give me your emergency radio. I know the frequencies." He hesitated, then nodded and gestured her in. The co-pilot glanced at her, confused. "Who the hell? A long story," she said. "But if I'm wrong, you'll have plenty of time to yell at me later." She grabbed the headset, tuned the backup channel manually, and keyed the mic. "Raptor 1, this is Falcon 6 on emergency frequency. Break formation. Repeat, break formation." Silence. The captain looked at her like she was insane. Then a crackle. "Say again. Identify. Falcon 6. Authentication code Delta X race Evan 9. You've got a civilian airliner with a fried transponder. Hold fire." Another pause. Then she heard it, disbelief mixed with recognition. "Falcon 6, is that really you?" Rachel smiled faintly. "Yeah, kid, it's me." The captain looked at her, astonished. "They know you." Rachel's eyes softened. "That's Lieutenant Harris. I trained him." She keyed the mic again. "Listen, Harris, the bird's safe. We've got comm failure and no threat on board. Stand down and escort us to open corridor." A long silence followed, then a calm reply. "Copy that, Falcon 6, holding fire, awaiting confirmation from command." Rachel exhaled slowly, her hand trembling slightly. For the first time the captain smiled weakly. "You just saved 200 lives." "Not yet," she said quietly. "They still need clearance from the top." Minutes dragged. The passengers stared at the F-22s gliding beside them, their sleek wings glinting like guardian angels in the sunlight. Then, over the radio, Raptor 1, "You are clear to escort Delta Flight 729 to Andrews. No engagement authorized. Repeat, no engagement." Rachel let out a long, shaky breath. She had done it. The crisis was over. But something inside her, something long buried, had reawakened. The fire, the focus, the old strength she thought she'd lost. As the F-22s guided the plane toward safety, Rachel watched them, eyes misting. "Falcon 6, came Harris's voice again, softer now. "We thought you were gone." "Just grounded," she replied. "Looks like I still remember how to fly." He chuckled. "We never forgot you, ma'am." "Keep your wings steady, Harris," she said. "And watch your 6." The radio went quiet again. When they landed, the entire cabin erupted into applause, passengers crying, hugging, thanking the flight attendants who had no idea what had really just happened. Rachel stayed in her seat, quiet, staring out the window as emergency crews swarmed the tarmac. The captain came to her side, Major Hayes. He said softly, "The Air Force wants to debrief you. They said they'll send someone to escort you." She nodded. "I figured." He hesitated, then smiled. "I owe you my life." She looked up, her eyes kind but distant, "Just doing what I was trained to do." As the passengers disembarked, Rachel stayed back until the aisle cleared. Then she walked down the jet bridge, where 2 uniformed officers were waiting. One saluted her, "Welcome back, Falcon 6." She froze back. The officer smiled faintly. "Command wants to talk. Seems they've been trying to reach you for a while." Rachel laughed quietly. "Of course they have." As they walked her toward the black SUV outside, she glanced up. The F-22s were still circling above the airport, glinting like silver guardians against the blue for the first time in years. She didn't look away. Hours later, inside a quiet Air Force hangar, Rachel stood facing an old familiar face, General Sloan, her former commanding officer. He looked older now, gray at the temples, but his eyes were the same, sharp, unreadable. 4 years off the grid, he said. Then you show up in the middle of a potential shoot-down and call your own code like nothing's changed. Rachel crossed her arms, didn't exactly plan it. He smirked. Still breaking protocol, I see. She shrugged. Old habits. He studied her. You saved 200 civilians today, Major, including 2 members of Congress. Just lucky timing. He shook his head. Not luck. Instinct. The kind you can't train into people. The kind we lost when you walked away. Rachel met his eyes. I didn't walk. I was grounded for something that wasn't your fault. He said quietly, you froze because you were human. We all would have. She looked down. Tell that to the people I couldn't save, Rachel. He said, stepping closer, you just saved every one of them today. Maybe that's how you make peace with it. For a long time she said nothing. Then, what happens now? He smiled slightly. We could use a pilot with your instincts even if you don't fly anymore. Command is opening a new civilian liaison post. You'd bridge airspace security between FAA and defense. She frowned. You're offering me a desk. Not a desk, he said. A second chance. Rachel stared past him, through the hangar doors where the F-22s gleamed under the floodlights. Maybe it wasn't about flying anymore. Maybe it was about listening, about teaching the next Falcon 6 not to crash before they learned to soar. She nodded slowly. I'll think about it. Sloane smiled. "You've got until morning, and Hayes, yeah." He grinned. "It's good to have you back." That night, Rachel stood on the balcony of her hotel overlooking the runway. The city lights flickered in the distance. In her hand, she held the old flight patch she'd kept hidden for years, a Falcon mid-dive embroidered in gold. She remembered the first time she'd earned it, how proud her father had been, how her squad had cheered when they called her Falcon 6 over the comms. Now, after everything, that name had found her again. Her phone buzzed. A message, unknown number. "Good to hear your voice today, ma'am. Harris," she smiled. Typed back, "Keep flying steady, kid, and don't forget why you started." She slipped the patch into her pocket, looked toward the sky where a faint contrail cut across the stars, and whispered, "Once a pilot, always a pilot." 2 weeks later, Rachel walked into her new office at Andrews Air Force Base. The plaque on the door read, "Rachel Hayes, Civilian Air Defense Liaison." It wasn't the cockpit, but it was purpose. Every day, she monitored airspace corridors, coordinated with NORAD teams, and mentored young pilots on emergency protocols. She didn't need the thrill anymore. She'd found something deeper. And every time she heard an F-22 roar overhead, she felt a quiet peace. Then, one afternoon, a young lieutenant walked into her office, nervous, eager. "Ma'am," he said, saluting, "they told me you're Falcon 6. Rachel smiled gently. "Now I just make sure the new ones don't get shot down." He hesitated. "Can I ask, how did it feel, saving that flight?" She looked out the window, like finally being where I was supposed to be. He nodded slowly. As he turned to leave, she called out, "Lieutenant." "Yes, ma'am." She smiled. "When you're up there, remember something. It's not the call sign that makes the pilot. It's the heart behind it." He grinned. "I'll remember that." And as he left, Rachel leaned back, closed her eyes, and listened to the faint echo of engines beyond the glass. The same sky she once conquered still waited above. Only now she no longer needed to fly to touch it, because deep down she finally understood sometimes the greatest missions happen when you're grounded. And sometimes even a passenger in 13F can save the world if she remembers who she really is.